Edward Brown, host of The Best of Investing, here to remind you to tune in this week on Saturday at 8 p.m. Our guest is going to be Paul Van Every. You're not going to want to miss this show. That's The Best of Investing on Saturday at 8 p.m. Welcome. You're listening to The Best of Investing. I'm your host, Edward Brown. Our phone number is 888-912-1190. Use that number to answer the trivia questions for a 5-pack tanning certificate given away during this show. And that certificate is not sponsored by the radio station, but by Tan Bella Tanning Salon with 2 locations in San Francisco and 1 in Marin. Today, we do have a special guest, Ken Brown. No relation to Edward Brown. CCIM from Triple Net Companies. And Ken is a recognized expert in commercial real estate with over 40 years of experience exclusively representing buyers. His mission is simple: to help his clients secure high-performing triple net properties with maximum value and minimum hassle. In the 1980s, Ken founded 1-800-4-RATES, a groundbreaking service that revolutionized mortgage shopping through a joint venture with ABC Radio. The campaign aired on over 3,300 radio stations, allowing homeowners to compare lenders with a single phone call, a first-of-its-kind service. Recognizing the potential of the internet, Ken later launched Triple Net Companies, providing exclusive buyer representation in the triple net property market. Understanding that listing brokers primarily serve sellers, Ken filled a critical need by acting as a dedicated advocate for buyers, ensuring their interests are always prioritized. Ken, welcome to The Best of Investing.
Well, thank you. Good to be here.
All right. So for the audience, we're not sure who's listening from the standpoint of how sophisticated they are. So tell us exactly what a triple net property is and how it differs from other types of real estate investments.
So a triple net property, the technical definition of a triple net property, is a lease in which the tenant pays the taxes, the insurance, and the maintenance. The landlord gets paid net of those 3 expenses, hence triple net.
Okay.
The kind of person that invests in a triple net is typically someone who has had tenants and does not want tenants anymore and wants the security of a safe and stable income for the longest possible time without having to do anything.
Okay. And I know I know a little bit about this. So it's really kind of interesting because on a full service lease, the lease rates will be higher than triple net, but then a landlord is the one who kind of decides, hey, we need to do this or that, versus the tenant who, on a triple net may say, well, you know what, because I've had situations like that where the tenant forgot to tell me that the roof was leaking because they didn't want to pay for it. So how does one go ahead and manage a triple net, from that end of it?
So, as you know, some tenants are better than others.
Yeah.
You really want to invest in a tenant that is a multi-billion-dollar tenant with an investment-grade credit rating that cares about their property. So,
Gotcha. Good point.
In a triple net property, you do nothing. So you really do leave it to the responsibility of the tenant to be responsible. And if you have a good quality investment grade tenant, they usually take care of things.
Gotcha. Now, it sounds like when you're talking about these multi-billion-dollar type companies, one would think that the owner of the property who's leasing to these companies, would have to have a lot of money. I mean, like renting out a 500,000 square foot building to, General Electric or something, but that's not always the case.
Well, if you're lending, if you own a 500,000 square foot building, yeah, you need to have a lot of money. But most people are coming out of a 1031 with, $1 million, $1.5 million, or 800,000. That's just fine.
Gotcha. And we're going to get into the 1031 exchanges in a minute also, because I know you're on your list of stuff to talk about Delaware statutory trusts, and think the audience will be interested in that. Tell you what, here's our first trivia question. And just as a reminder, Ken, if you know the answer, don't say anything quite yet. We'll see if you can come back and know the answer to this one. Which is the only band to have played in Antarctica? Apparently, there was only one band. This happened in 2013, so maybe since then another band has done that. But which is the only band to have played in Antarctica? All right, call 888-912-1190. The first caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate, which, by the way, is about worth over $100. Stay with us. You're listening to The Best of Investing. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my special guest, unrelated to me, Ken Brown. Our first trivia question, which is the only band to have played in Antarctica? Any idea, Ken?
Not a clue.
Not a clue. Metallica. Metallica. I guess they just wanted to play on every continent. I do want to make a mention here for Action Whitewater Adventures. They provide the best rafting experience in the North Bay, from beginners to more advanced rafters. Check them out at actionwhitewater.com for rafting trips. And we're getting into the summertime, so you definitely want to book your trip now. All right, we are talking with Ken Brown, who is an expert in primarily commercial real estate, and specifically we're talking about triple net properties. Why would someone buy a triple net property over another type of property?
Because they want a life.
Yeah.
That's just the simple answer. If you like talking to your tenants on a regular basis, getting up at 3 a.m. to fix a toilet, or chasing somebody for rent, triple net properties is not the right property for you.
Yeah, you're talking more like apartment buildings and stuff like that.
Right, exactly. And matter of fact, the vast majority of our tenants are in a 1031 and come from some type of residential investment.
And they wanted to get out of that because the tenants
They're just done. And at the end of the day, the returns tend to be higher. Not to mention the return on your time. I mean, there is a whole issue of quality of life.
Sure.
And that's why people invest in triple net properties. I mean, you could play the stock market. There's a multitude of things that you could do where you might make more money. But most people who invest in triple net properties are doing something already that they want to do, something that they like, or else they're retired and they just don't want to deal with it. They want to get a check every month as long as possible.
Let me ask you, why you just mentioned earlier, just a little bit ago, that you tend to the rates of return tend to be higher for the triple net. Why is that?
I think a lot of it just has to do with the culture. What would you say returns are for multifamily right now? They're in the 4s.
Yeah.
Because everybody likes multi. When people think commercial, they think multi. Triple nets, they easily in the 6s for multi-billion-dollar investment grade corporations. And that's for 10, 15, 20-year lease terms. So, if you have a triple net property and it burns down, they still have to pay you for it. If they vacate, they still have to pay you for the remainder of the lease term.
Yeah.
Once you sign that lease, your agreement is not with the tenant. Your agreement is with the corporation. Why I keep using the term multi-billion-dollar investment grade corporation. Because if your store it becomes vacant for whatever reason, whatever happens to it, and they call you, which they would never do, the correct response is, not my problem.
Gotcha. So, because the parent company, like especially if it's like franchise or if they have a lot of stores, the parent company is still going to be responsible for the lease. Yeah.
And you use the term franchise. Now, a franchise is not necessarily a multi-billion-dollar corporation, so I don't mind if you buy a property from a franchisee. The whole foundation of a triple net property is that you want to have a tenant who has the ability to keep its promise regardless of what happens. So if it's a franchisee with 200 stores and it's a blanket encumbrance on all 200 stores,
Uh,
you're fine. If it
Got
is some guy who just promises to pay you really, 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 you can trust me, yeah. And we have never let somebody get into a property like that. I mean, a triple net, the people who buy triple net properties, I mean, we have some very large clients. I mean, we've had $100 million clients and some larger, but for the most part, they're people for whom this investment secures their financial freedom for themselves and their family. And that's a fiduciary responsibility that we take very seriously.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's see. We're going to cut to a break here pretty soon. When we come back, want to find out like how does one choose a triple net property? I mean, obviously, but let's pitch you for just a quick minute here. If people are interested in learning more about triple net properties and you represent the buyers, how do people get a hold of you, Ken?
Well, they should just go onto our website, triplenetcompanies.com, put in your name, contact information, and what you're looking for. And
Okay.
we will get back to you. We will search all of the public databases. We will look at the broker databases. We will look at our off-market sheets, and we will get back to you. I'd like to add that this is all at no cost to the buyer, because with all commercial real estate, we all get paid by the seller. This is without a doubt, in my opinion, the best deal in town.
Yeah, I hear you on that. All right, we're going to cut to our second commercial break here. The trivia question is, what's the only animal species where males get pregnant and give birth? What is the only animal species where males get pregnant and give birth? Call 888-912-1190. The first caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate. Again, is worth about $100. I also want to make a mention here for Mountain Mike's Pizza in San Rafael. Pizza the way it ought to be. You got to check them out because when they make pepperoni pizza, they put a lot of pepperonis on it. That's my favorite. The pepperoni pizza. Every time I do a commercial for them, I get my mouth waters for their pizza. Check them out. Mountain Mike's Pizza in San Rafael. Stay with us. You're listening to The Best of Investing. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. One more time, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my special guest, Ken Brown. And second trivia question, what's the only animal species where males get pregnant and give birth? Any idea? What do you think?
Still no clue.
No clue. A seahorse. But here's the funny thing is like, how do they determine that it's a male? I would just kind of say, go ahead.
I thought seahorse, but
Yeah, I did tell you it's on the tip of
mammal. That's
your
not a
brain. Yeah,
mammal.
I know, but the thing is like, well, it's the only species where males
Oh,
give
the only
birth.
species. Okay, so
Yeah, no,
I could have just won. Oh well.
yeah, but the
Next
funny thing
time.
is that if it's, why wouldn't they just say, well, it's really a female? I don't know what the difference, how they determine that that's a male versus a female. You know,
You
I
have
don't.
to ask how it identifies.
Exactly. It's like people ask me what my pronouns are, and I say Lord and King. How's that? You have to treat me. I'm El Presidente. I do want to make a quick mention here also for the Transcendence Theater. They have some awesome Broadway shows in Sonoma in their outdoor theater. I always love going myself. Go to transcendencetheater.com to check out their various show dates and the various programs they're having. All right, we are in the studio via Zoom with Ken Brown, who's an expert in triple net properties. How do you choose a triple net property if you're an investor?
Great question. So you have to start from a 30,000-foot view.
Okay.
What I mean by that is you have to look at what's going on in the culture today. For instance, CVS and Walgreens and Rite Aid used to be ideal properties.
Yeah.
I mean, if you know where they're located, they're beautiful properties.
Yeah.
That being said, CVS is sold off 900 of their stores, leaving 900 investors with recourse loans. Walgreens is selling an enormous number of stores or shuttering them. Rite Aid is out of business.
Yeah.
So before we even talk about properties, we have to talk about, is the industry that you're investing in, is it Amazon proof? Then is it pandemic proof? Is it recession proof? So these are the first questions that you have to answer. And that cuts out a good number of properties.
Sure.
So you're left with properties like Dollar General. Dollar Generals are $1.5 to $2.5 million. They have a few different flavors of Dollar General these days. Half of Dollar General's customers don't have credit cards. They pull into a Dollar General on their way home from work to buy a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Yeah.
They appeal to the lower income, the spectrum of people with less money who pay cash.
Well, I got to say, personally, I'm not like on the lower end, but I actually love going to those dollar store, the general store, that Dollar General, because it's funny. I was taking a shower last night, and the best squeegee I ever purchased, to get the fill of the thing was the one I got from the dollar store. Versus the one I paid like $10 for, some fancy one, and I love Amazon, but I got it like through Amazon, and my dollar one works 10 times better. So I love that kind of stuff.
I agree. How often do you shop at a dollar store?
I got to say it's been a little while, but I'd say probably 4 times a year, maybe.
So you're not a customer.
Basically, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So the Dollar General customer. So Dollar General likes to be located on the going home side of the street. So you pull in, you grab something, and you leave.
Yeah.
You spend $20, and you do that pretty frequently.
Yeah.
So that's one asset class. Fast food is another one. Some medical is another one. I like Caliber Collision. Caliber, Amazon is never going to be in the auto dent repair business. And Caliber Collision has a sweetheart deal with most of the insurers where they can get the work done for less. Other than one state, you are legally required to have insurance. And if you have insurance and you get into a fender bender, there's Caliber Collision. So there are good companies. Now, getting even more granular than that, ideally, you would like to be in an area where your service area, 3 miles radius around your property is stable or expanding. Ideally, you would like to have a good vehicle per day count. And all of that sounds a little daunting, especially since there are so many listing sites. There are so many off-market properties that, the advantage of a buyer's broker is that we scour all of those sites.
Yeah.
And of the 200,000 properties, the 20,000 triple net properties on the market at any one time, there's usually a property out there that will meet your criteria if you're reasonable.
Good. All right. So you guys going to go our third trivia question here. In which U.S. state is it illegal to remarry the same person 4 times? Kind of a crazy question there. Call 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer wins that tanning certificate. Stay with us. The Best of Investing will be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Edward Brown here, along with Ken Brown. All right, Ken, let's see if you know the answer to this one. In which U.S. state is it illegal to remarry the same person 4 times? Which, who knows why you'd want to go through that, but okay.
Well, I've never had the need to look that up, but it's an interesting question.
Kentucky. They figure, okay, you can do it three
That would have
times.
been my guess.
My guess, yeah, you can do it three times. You just can't do it the fourth time, right? You didn't learn your lesson. So, off air, I asked you a question. I'll ask it on there. Generally, let's say a client comes to you, either they're coming out of a 1031 exchange, or they just have money that they want to. They like the idea of, think I'd like to buy a triple net property. Understanding a little bit about. How long does it take for you to find an appropriate property for a buyer?
Well, it depends on how reasonable you are.
Yeah.
We have a term in our company called a unicorn.
Hmm.
If you want an 8 cap in Manhattan for $1 million, you're a unicorn.
Yeah.
Now, if you're reasonable, just regular parameters, you've got $1 million, you want to get a 6 cap investment grade tenant, 15-year term. We in a particular location, that doesn't take you long at all. That doesn't take us long at all.
Okay.
And we will initially send you a rather large list on an Excel spreadsheet, not to overwhelm you, but to show you how this particular tenant compares to that particular tenant. For example, the Dollar General might be 6.5% cap rate.
Okay.
Whereas a Chick-fil-A might be 3.75
Well,
for no good reason. McDonald's might be 3.75 for no good reason. A multi-billion-dollar corporation with an investment-grade credit rating is a multi-billion-dollar corporation with an investment-grade credit rating. It's a bond. You want to make sure that you're going to get paid. You are buying a promise.
Yeah.
If you're buying a promise, I'd rather buy a promise that's going to pay me 6% than 3.5%. So
Well, I was going to say that the interesting thing too is like when people generally the general rule of thumb, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, if someone's looking for just a generic investment to purchase, let's say, an apartment building or something, they're going to want to be within an hour and a half, let's say, of the property, because they're going to have to potentially visit that property maybe more often than they want. But on something like this with a triple net, I mean, you could buy out of state and not have a big deal because the tenant's taking care of everything, right?
yeah, if you showed up at your property that you own and you walk in there and say, "Hi, I'm the owner," the guy behind the counter would say, "If you don't want to buy something, please leave."
Yeah, exactly.
Who cares you own? You are buying a bond, essentially.
Yeah.
You're buying a piece of real estate that promises to pay you for 15 to 20 years, regardless of what happens to the economy. That's what you're buying. Now, I will tell you, finding a property is relatively easy. Lots of public listing sites that you can go on yourself. You can just call a bunch of brokers. There's a few problems with that. For instance, we have a client who wanted to buy, today we're dealing with this, who wanted to buy a shopping center for $1.9 million. And it turns out that the broker misrepresented the financials. Now, I have to tell you that if you look at any offering memorandum, it says the information contained herein we believe to be true and accurate. And if you keep reading, it says in much nicer terms that I'm going to put it, you're on your own, best of luck.
Yeah.
So making sure that the property you're buying is actually located on the right parcel, making sure that there aren't significant liens against it or environmental problems, that takes a while. Now, if you are in due diligence, I've never met anybody who is not in this business who has the ability to do that depth of due diligence on their own. And that's really where we excel, in that I've got a CCIM, which is a highest educational degree in commercial real estate. Our head of due diligence has a master's in urban planning. I mean, you really want to have some competent people do that. And you don't necessarily want to have the listing broker do that, because the legal fiduciary responsibility of the listing broker is to sell their client's property.
Yeah, that's a good point. But also, you mentioned a shopping center. Generally, I think of a shopping center as not triple net from a big company, because you're going to have, a Macy's and stuff like that, right?
I agree. It just happens to be one that we are dealing with today. And I'm, referring more to due diligence than I am ideally a triple net property. We like single tenant net lease properties.
Gotcha. And again, I can just really see the value of someone hiring you. Again, because the average person, I mean, I'm fairly sophisticated, I think I am, but I couldn't do all that on my own. And you have, like you said, I mean, you got the, phase. It's so funny. I tease people. They say, "Well, did you do a phase one property?" I said, "Phase one. I did a phase two and a phase three." For the audience, if I'm not mistaken, I think there's really only a phase one. If there's a problem, you do a phase two, and that's it. I don't think there is a phase three. But I joke around with people like that. Okay. All right, audience, stay with us. You're listening to The Best of Investing with Edward Brown and Ken Brown. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be back with some closing comments. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my special guest, Ken Brown, who's an expert in triple net properties. Now, we did talk about some good potential triple net properties. Let's go through some examples of maybe less than good triple nets. What would you think?
Well, a less than good triple net property would be a franchisee without a sufficiently large financial statement to back their promise. At the end of the day, you're buying real estate, but you're buying a promise, and you want to make sure that that person has a promise. A less than good example of a triple net property, if mostly properties look good on the surface, it's during the due diligence that we find skeletons in the closet. Keep in mind that the seller's broker does not need to disclose faults. As I said, the information herein we believe to be true and accurate, but you're on your own. Yeah. Of course, it's about 2 paragraphs longer than that.
Well, let me ask you on the, because you mentioned, let's say, Rite Aid, which, was having a lot of problems. So at one point, multi-billion-dollar company, lots and lots of locations. And if you purchased one of those and they closed up, in theory, the corporation's still responsible. But what happens if they would go through BK?
So worst case, it becomes dark or vacant.
Yeah.
That is where you want to make sure, as I mentioned earlier, that you want to have a good building within an area that is stable or expanding with a good vehicle count per day passing by. And you don't want to buy something like an oil change that could only be repurposed to another oil change. But, the Rite Aid down our street is a 10, 15,000 square foot building that they turned into a Dollar Tree.
Perfect.
Voila. Now, had that been, something else, other than a box, it would have been more difficult.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a very good point. We're definitely going to have you on again, Ken, because you're quite the expert in triple net, and it's really refreshing to have someone on like you, because you make it fairly easy to understand. And investors can actually see the benefit. So give out your information one more time, if you would.
So Ken Brown, no relationship to Edward. The best way to reach us is to just get on to our website, triplenetcompanies.com, or give us a call. Our phone number is at the top of that. It will come directly to me, and I'd be happy to answer your questions.
All right. And we do have a silly joke of the week. You ready? So a fisherman started dating a mermaid. He met her online. I love when my guests laugh at my jokes, and I didn't make these up. I find them on the internet. And then here's our thoughts for the day. So someone broke into my garage last night and stole my limbo stick. Seriously, how low can you go? And my wife dated a clown before marrying me. I had some big shoes to fill. I'll tell you that. All right, audience, tune in next week to The Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away more free prizes for answering trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown, wishing you the best of investing. So long.